Hi all, I have another very entertaining game from Leela playing against the Komodo MCTS version, Monte Carlo Tree Search version. So this game presented by Thomas Kaz, August 22nd, 2018. So the time limit is 3 minutes with 2-second increments. So E4, the book moves given, are these trendy Scandinavian moves. Queen D6, this is quite trendy, in vogue at the moment. Queen A5 or Queen D8 are major alternatives. D4, so Leela plays D4 here. That was the end of the book. Now this is the first move Leela plays. Knight F6, Knight F3, and this knight is pinned. H3, not concerned about black taking to try and take on D4. For example, if takes, this didn't happen. This would be a disaster because of Queen takes B7. And in any case, even if black tries to play solidly here, white has the bishop here and can try and castle queenside. For example, this line is really, really nice for white. Big advantage coming up. So we have actually the bishop just retreating, keeping that annoying pin. But now it's unpinned. G4, bishop G6, bishop G2. So the bishop covers the weak light squares. Relatively weakened light squares. Knight C6. Black has a naughty plan of casting queenside here. White castles kingside, not worried about things like h5 coming up. Black castles queenside. Now knight b5, a very forcing move, which also defends d4 as well as attacking the queen. Queen d7 was played. If we look at this with queen d5 as an example, hitting the knight, a4, and this is really dangerous for black. For example, queen c4, this line hits c7. That knight is very aggressive there. And if knight d5, then knight e5 here, hitting the queen. And if takes, we have these fun lines, for example, like this, hitting the queen. c4, this is just really strong for white. This scenario is just absolutely crushing. There's crushing attacking prospects here. For example, like this. We have white's queen and two bishops really coordinating well with a big advantage. If we have a look at that line again, say trying to kick the knight with a6, this fells knight e5, hitting the queen. If bishop e4, then taking here, and taking here is probably one of the better moves. If taking here, then there's knight a7 check. By the way, so let's say black does this, there's still check here and c4, and this is just devastating for black. Black ends up getting the queen lost anyway after queen d2, knight e5 check, for example. This is absolutely devastating. So there's some really crushing lines, and here also there's some entertaining lines as well, with the queen being attacked here. If knight e4, knight takes c6, so if queen takes again, there's knight a7. And on b takes, knight c3, this position is just really bad for black's king safety. For example, like this is absolutely really devastating, hitting the queen and threatening mate as an example. This is just good enough for a big advantage, a rook up. So there are a lot of lines which basically lose already. Queen d5 doesn't help. So queen d7 was played. But now bishop f4, so the knight's really justified just hitting c7 here. Black tries e5 here to try and shield c7. On a6, the tactical idea of e5 trying to interrupt the protection of the knight fails to knight takes e5. This position, white's just big advantage. Queen takes doesn't bear thinking about. Knight takes g6, hitting the rook, hitting the queen, protecting the bishop. So e5 was tried instead. We have bishop takes e5, still keeping the pressure on c7. a6 here. You might think, well, knight takes, doesn't that unveil an attack on the knight here? Well, knight takes a7 is amusing. After this, knight takes e5 is really quite amusing, because now there's a check here to win the queen. Both knights helping each other win the queen in that line. And if we just go back to this critical juncture, if instead queen d6, Then again, this is strong. This line is strong, showing the king safety of black is very suspect on the queen side. We see in this line with queen coming in, 95 sealing the exit, so queen a8, checkmate is threatened. But even so, this line is just slaughter for black king. So yeah, so if we go back, this variation, yeah, a6 was tried, and that knight's just protected with the pawn, trying to activate the rook for crashing through a rook a8. Black didn't dare to take that knight and played h5, trying to counter-attack. Let's have a look just for fun. A takes, say the knight retreats. This is really great fun. c4, so that opens up the queen as well a bit more. Rook a8, this line with queen a4 is absolutely devastating, this position. Let's have a look. HG, rook takes b8 check, and rook a1 threatening, queen a8 checkmate. And after b6 there's either d5 to close the bishop from a8, or the more fun moves are knight h4. This is one of my favourite tactics in bullet chess. Can you see the idea here? If I give you 5 seconds, white to play here. Queen a8 check is mating. That's a really nice mating pattern to be aware of. But yeah, there are different ways of checkmating there. d5 is also just good, blocking the bishop from a8. But yeah, if that's the best move, then that's not very good. If the queen took here, then mating on c7 alternative. So yeah, taking is basically a bad idea because of this rook a8 business. So here h5 was played, g5, knight e8, c4 still opening up the queen as well, and there's other possibilities coming in as well now. Queen f5, h4, queen d3, trying to get the queens off desperately. If knight takes e5 here, knight takes this position after a takes, queen takes e5. There's a beautiful move in this line, absolutely beautiful. I wonder if you can spot it. That's real corker. Okay. Bishop c6, yeah, just sealing the exit of the king, threatening rook a8 checkmate. For example, this is just checkmating. Check, and then like checkmating. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And if we go back here after knight takes, instead of a takes, just queen takes e5 immediately. Here, white plays knight a7 check, so the king can't step because then there's d takes check. And if the king goes here, then there's actually this queen b3 threatening checkmate on b7. And this just is basically absolutely winning the queen after, keeping the attack on b7 and the queen. So all really beautiful variations here in this line. So queen d3 we had been played, and now Leela doesn't mind the queens coming off. Bishop g3 here, the calm bishop g3. This is just such an impressive attacking position, even with the queens off here. Really powerful. f6 was played. You might think, well, shouldn't black grab that opportunity to take the queens off? Doesn't help that much. Queen takes here. This is a really crushing position. For example, f6, d5, knight comes back. Sorry. Let's go through this again. f6 was played. Instead, if the queen takes, f6 here, d5, knight a5, knight bd4. This position, there's check, and knight e6. This is, again, it's just too much pressure here for black to handle. There's things like rook ac1 as well coming in for c7. So if black tries to shield, this is an example, fictional continuation, where we can simulate an attack, just crashing through basically. It's an attack simulation. Yeah, the attack crashes through on the queen exchange. On here, 8 takes, you might think being greedy in this simplified position without the queen on. This is just murderous because of bishop h3. If knight d7, then there's checkmate there. If the rook has to go in front, then again, rook a8, and now c5. So big threats, like c6, for example, to win that rook. This bishop is really powerful on this diagonal. And here, there's a beautiful move in this line. I wonder if you can spot it if I give you 5 seconds. So although black's parried c6, there's another way to hit the rook with more pressure here. Can you guess? Okay, it's really cool stuff. Knight e5. So threatening, yeah, the rook. And if takes, then takes, opening up the rook against the rook. And it's really helpless for black. This position, for example, is just crashing through. Check. Taking the bishop with a big material advantage. So all in all, it seems as though taking the queen off there doesn't really help. f6 was played. Now d5. And now finally black does take on b5, activating this rook. Is that lethal or what, this rook? Now the queen is taken off here. Knight e7. Knight d4, just really calm position. So Leela, a whole piece down. But you can just feel that this attack has got huge prospects. This diagonal, this file, there's huge prospects. The knight popping into e6. The pawns look really aggressive. There's 2 pawns for the piece here, but it's just a menacing attack. Say king b8, knight e6, with the big threat of b6 here, because of that pinned pawn. So say black desperately tries to unpin with rook d6. You know, if rook g8, as an example, b6 doesn't help matters. This is absolutely, you know, doesn't bear thinking about. So rook d6, trying to shield the king. Rook a2 is played, just with the simple idea of doubling rooks to checkmate on a8. Yeah, knight f5. Now here, actually, bishop takes d6 is played. Knight takes. Now c5. Knight takes. Rook d a1, threatening the mating one, rook a8, checkmate. King tries to move, but now this diagonal comes into force with bishop h3. A huge, unstoppable attack. f5 was played. If king d7, black can lose every single piece nearly after check, double check, check with fork, then take the rook with check. That's quite fun. Yeah, the knight's on a sort of training course there, hopping around. Okay, so f5, we have now c6 sealing d7, so rook a8 is renewed as a checkmate threat. B takes, d takes, and black desperately plays bishop a3. White takes with the rook still to renew the threat of rook a8 checkmate. The game actually ended here. White has got all the material back and is still got a crushing attack. For example, king b8, knight c5, with a lot of mating ideas. For example, knight f6 is probably the better move here, and just taking for bishop g2. Knight d7 check is checkmating. For example, like this. That's an example. Continuation. So let's go back where the game ended. So yeah, wonderful stuff from Leela Chess there. Casting queenside doesn't seem to be a very stable thing for black to do in this Scandinavian queen d6 variation as far as this game example is concerned. So that's interesting. Queen e6 is becoming a very trendy line, so maybe topical as well this game. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.